Good evening and welcome to the Ombudsman's program. My name is Diane Welborn and I am the Ombudsman and I'm going to be your host for this evening's program. Tonight I'm very pleased to bring to our viewers a very large coalition that is working in our community to help improve access to food, and it is called the Montgomery County Food Equity Coalition. When one looks at the numbers of teams and committees that are working with this, it's an effort of hundreds, really hundreds of people. So my guests tonight to talk about this are Commissioner Judy Dodge, and also I have with me Jeff Held, which is H2Grow is his company, a nonprofit that is doing some very innovative work for us here. So I'd like to ask you to start by giving us a little history about this Food Equity Coalition and how did you bring all of these people together, and some of the teams that you might want to highlight and where they are in their work.
Well, do we have an hour just for me to talk about this? Because
well, maybe we'll
so encompassing. Yeah. Well,
take it away.
Okay. I've been a commissioner since 2006, and as everyone knows, 2007 and 8 we had the great tsunami that hit our community, and obviously our roles raised as far as with SNAP programs. People all of a sudden were out of work; they had no food. So I was asked to participate in a simulation back about 2009 or 10, and this was at a nonprofit, and this was they gave you a card and they said, okay, this is your money and this is your family. Now go over here and buy food for this family for a week with this money. Well, I thought, piece of cake. I tried it and I was stunned. I couldn't even get close to what this family needed, because some of them have special needs. So that's when I got together with some other elected officials, some other government people, and just said, you know, we've got to tackle this problem. This can't be happening here in Montgomery County. So I started at that time the Food Policy Coalition. And we started having yearly meetings and forums, and we asked the public to come and participate. The first one I probably had maybe 70 people. I have had them every year, and last year it was over 300. So it's picking up, and basically what we're trying to do is talk about food insecurity. So many people don't know where their next meal is coming from. And so, and also we've got food, there is no food access to so many people. I know we're going to talk about food deserts here in a little bit, but they didn't know where to go to get their food. And so we're really dealing with just an awful lot of topics. And I have a lot of wonderful volunteers that are participating in these topics. Now, these are the subcommittees under the Food Equity Coalition, because we changed the name because it really has to go for every single person, whatever your race is, what your income is, no matter what it is, we're all equal when it comes to food. So basically these titles are food insecurity, vibrant farms, sustainable ecosystems, strong communities, healthy people, and thriving local economy. Now think about all these. These are very difficult questions to answer in our community. So they meet maybe once a month, something like that. Wonderful people on every single committee, and they're really trying to work very hard to try to come to answers to a lot of these things that are going on in our community.
Oh, that's wonderful. Good to have so many volunteers and so many different committees that you have there. Let's take one of your committees, for example, anyone that you want to pick.
Okay.
And just tell us a little, well, you can tell us about several. I mean, if it's too hard to pick one. But just say a little bit more about the working of the committee.
Okay. All right. Well, let's just talk about basically what is meant by food insecurity.
Okay.
Okay. And that means that, as I just said, you don't know where your next meal is coming from. Think about that. If you would go to work or you go to school, you don't know when you're going to eat again. It's terrifying. So basically, a lot of that's kind of the overarching goal of every single one of these committees. So we're basically looking at let me look here at one of these, the Vibrant Farms community.
All right.
Okay, and I think that you're probably going to be
Yes.
able to jump into this. And that's that basically what they're doing is looking at shortening the gap between the farmer and the consumer. In our area, we have, what, over 300,000 acres in Montgomery County, and I think you said about 100,000 are
Right.
farms.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, in that area, basically, you've got your large farms, you've got your small farms, you've got your community gardens, and you've got your backyard little
Right.
things that you put there. Well, this group is basically looking at, how can we basically make sure that all these different areas are communicating in some way, getting that produce right to the consumer as quick as you possibly can to make sure that it's fresh. Because sometimes you go to the grocery store and you don't know when you pick up those fresh fruits and vegetables, how long have they been traveling in the truck? So wouldn't it be great to be able to get all this food right here in our community? So that's just one of the.
That's an excellent example. Would you like to chip
Yeah,
in on that
because
one a
I
little
mean
bit?
that's
really where
that's
we
your
see
baby.
our role. Our part in the Food Equity Coalition, we think, will be exactly that. We want to be the local farmer for the people in need in Montgomery County. So we want to build a network of aquaponics farms throughout the county that supply food directly to the Food Equity Coalition. So we're not looking at selling them to restaurants or anything else. We want to give it right to the people that need it the most.
Okay, all right. So that's your H2Grow. That's that's your mission and purpose. Have you been participating in one or several of these committees that Commissioner just outlined?
I attended the kickoff back in November, which was incredible and very informative. But I'm not on any of the committees. We were actually starting our program completely unknowing that the committee was forming and doing what you were doing. So it's just serendipitous that we were.
Well, and
starting
wait
our
a minute,
mission at the
give me
same
your
time.
phone number, and I'm telling you, you're on it right now.
You've been voluntold, I guess is the way to say that. Yes,
Happily.
You'll get to go to the next one. You mentioned the food insecurity and that people did not know where to go. Well, people have in their neighborhoods, even in the food deserts. And I'd like to ask the staff at DATV to please put up the slide for the viewers that show the food deserts in Montgomery County. So, we do have grocery stores and we do have corner markets, but sometimes it's how to get there. They're seeing this. And so I'd like to ask you to talk a little bit about what these blue or gray shaded areas actually represent.
The blue shaded areas there, those are what's called food deserts. And food desert is basically means that if you live in an urban area, you live more than a mile from a grocery store.
Okay.
In a rural area, you live more than about 10 miles. So that sort of defines that. And you can see the Trotwood area, the western part of Montgomery County, a little bit down there in, looks like Moraine maybe, and some of the areas, a little bit of Huber Heights, a little bit of Riverside. It's just very, very upsetting. And just think about that area, how large that is. Right. Now, one of the problems we've been having, a lot of the grocery stores are closing that have been located in the food deserts over the past several years. So I think what we're trying to do, we've asked them don't do that, but of course it's a business and they're going to do whatever they want to do. And what we're trying to do is we're going to have to start thinking outside the box. And that is, we can't have these people going to the dollar stores, to the convenience stores, to the gas station.
Which are not primarily exist
No,
for food,
exactly.
right?
And so what they're eating then, a lot of processed foods. Well, guess what that does? That raises their blood pressure. That gets a lot of high cholesterol. It gets children, they gain weight. There's obesity in children, and this is all public health. They've seen these rises in this, so they're very much aware of this. So we're really trying to, as I said, think outside the box, try to get perhaps smaller fresh fruits and vegetable stands in that area. Homeful is getting ready sometime this spring to launch a food truck that they're going to go into designated areas and basically open up the truck for perhaps 2 or 3 hours different days. They'll always make sure that they're at the same day and time during the week. And won't that be a wonderful thing? And you know, when these grocery stores close, it is just the food. People go and they pay their DP&L bill there. They pay their phone bill there. Now where do they go? And so they have to, and sometimes buses don't necessarily go right by their house. So it's very scary, and we're really trying to do the best we can. You know, we're sort of on a nickel, you know, money here, but we're doing everything we can. One of the things I did with the Food Policy Coalition a couple years ago, we decided we've got to put a fresh fruits and vegetable stand somewhere. And so we thought, where's a good place? Well, we talked to RTA, right downtown at 3rd and Main. RTA was wonderful and let us have some space. So we've got several stands there, fresh fruits and vegetables every day, and Homeful took it over, and basically they're managing it right now. It's been very successful. Think about this. People transfer to go from one bus to another. They get on the bus and they leave, then they come back to transfer again, and oh, you know what, I got 15 minutes before the next bus comes. Gosh, what am I gonna have tonight for dinner? Let's go and get some fresh bananas or fresh potatoes or fresh green beans. And it's just been so successful, and they accept EBT cards.
Okay. Very, very important. Are there any particular areas within the food deserts that are being targeted for, you know, initial outreach? I mean, is there a project going for, or is it just kind of hitting it all over?
I think we're hitting it all over,
Okay.
and I do know that Homeful is looking at specific places, especially that was hit hard by the tornado.
Of course, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for adding on to that. And the history of the closing of the grocery stores in our area, were they just not making enough profit? It just was a lack of profit?
Yes, it was just a lack of their, you know, let's face it, businesses are in business to make money.
Exactly.
And so they just weren't making the money, and for whatever reason, some of these were locally owned grocery stores, and perhaps the management was getting older and they didn't have enough employees to come, so they decided to close. And it's been very, very sad, because some of these grocery stores have been around for a long, long time.
Yes.
I do know that in Trotwood that they've been able to, I think it's there's a grocery store up there. I can't think of the name of it, that they're starting to get to be able now to have actual groceries there, as opposed to making it just for businesses to come to buy the bulk.
Right. We have a caller that would like to ask a question. So I'm going to ask the caller, give us your question, please. You're on the air. Are you there?
Yes.
Oh, speak up, please.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
What a great show. Very, very relevant and timely, and I'm especially grateful to Commissioner Dodge for the initiative. Very visionary kind of work that she's brought together here. My question has to do with the demographics of food equity. I appreciated the map of food deserts that went up a few minutes ago, and of course, I know it correlates with certain ethnic and class divisions, but I want to ask about generational divisions. Young people who were hit particularly hard by the economic crisis of 2007, 2008, level of unemployment, and two little anecdotes that bring this home so strongly to me. I've encountered two young people in my neighborhood trying to make a living, mowing lawns, doing work in the neighborhood, painfully sick, heartbreaking. And the second anecdote is that I was robbed earlier this year. My wallet was stolen by a young man. And of course, when I went to cancel my credit cards, I discovered that this young man had used my credit card not to order luxury goods or bass fishing equipment, but he had used it to order food. He had tried to use it for Uber Eats. It's so poignant. So I'd like to hear something about the demographics of age, generations, and how that plays out in the current crisis of food equity.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. We'll get you the answer. Thanks for calling. All right. I'll let each of you take a turn on demographics and the impact.
Well, I think equity means everybody. It doesn't matter your nationality, it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your gender, it's everybody. So this is what we're trying to do, because we find that especially children, if they're not eating, good healthy food, then they're obese. And how can you go to school on an empty stomach and expect to learn? And this is so wonderful. In a lot of the schools, they feed them breakfast, and they give them a backpack, especially on Fridays, because they may not know where their next meal is coming from. Mm-hmm. So, it's just so important that we get kids, the younger kids, and then, I'm sorry, the elderly too. Mm-hmm. I mean, their nutrition level goes way down, and their potassium, especially. I remember my mother, the doctor would say, eat bananas. You have to eat bananas to keep your energy level up. So, it crosses all ages. It just crosses all ages. So I appreciate the gentleman calling and saying, and we're looking at everything. And I know public health has the statistics as far as, how it affects every single age level.
Okay, that's very good. Thank you for that great response. I would like to turn my attention a little bit to talk about the kind of growing that you are planning to do at H2Grow. So why don't you inform the viewers about that this is not your great-granddaddy's agriculture.
No, it's definitely not.
Yeah.
It's, so what we're looking to do is build an aquaponics farm.
Right.
And an aquaponics farm is simply the growing of fish and plants together in kind of a symbiotic environment, so that the fish supply the plants with the nutrients needed to grow, and the plants filter out ammonia in the water so that it's healthy for the fish. It's been going on for thousands of years. It's been done in China. It's been done, the Aztecs did it in like 1000 AD. So it's not by any means new technology or a new concept. But what we're basing it on is the work of Dr. James Rakosi. And he was down at the University of the Virgin Islands back in the 70s. And he started trying to figure out how to do this from a scientific basis. So how much fish food and how much fish grow, how many square feet of lettuce and other types of things. And what we've been doing is really building off of his work and the evolution of it over the last 50 years to come up with a very small footprint for a urban farm. So Dr. Rakosi's first farm was about half the size of a football field, and through technology developments and different people applying ingenuity across all over the world, they got this down to where we're going to be able to grow an acre's worth of food in a building that is 1,800 square feet.
All right.
So about 1/24th the size of an acre will produce the same amount of food over a year's period.
Wow. Impressive. What kind of vegetables grow best in this environment?
So leafy greens are really the bread and butter of what an aquaponics system will be. We also have the ability to grow peppers, tomatoes, beans, green beans. There's really not a lot that's off the table with aquaponics, which makes it a very flexible system, especially when you're dealing with an urban environment. You don't necessarily know what the consumer in that environment wants or needs, from whether they're older or younger, what their cultural background is, and you can tailor what you're growing specifically to the people that you're looking to support in that community. So we can do all types of tomatoes, all types of peppers. We really love doing bib lettuce because it looks gorgeous on the trays. Herbs, we can do rosemary and basil, cilantro, you name it.
Okay.
So basically then, what you're talking about, the fruits and the vegetables, you would then bring them, let's say, to my market down there at 3rd and Main.
We would love to do that.
Okay, all right. So in other words, you're just going to do local. you're going to hopefully just bring all this stuff to the local markets.
We want everything grown. We want our markets to be within 10 miles of where we start.
Okay.
Okay.
So from farm to market within 10 miles, and harvested the same day it's bought by a consumer. So that's about as fresh as you get.
Yes, it is. That's ingenious.
'cause-
Are you
'cause-
the first in our county to begin in this method?
No, there's been other people in Montgomery County that have done aquaponics farms. Unfortunately, the one that I knew of was destroyed in the tornado on Memorial Day.
Oh, that's too
And
bad.
I hope they're rebuilding. I've been following them on Facebook, but I haven't seen anything. So I hope they do, because they were really starting off on something. There's other people in the area. There's folks in Cincinnati and Toledo. So Ohio's not a stranger to aquaponics, but it's not very widely known.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it isn't, yeah.
Well, it also seems then that since it's all grown indoors, that there would be the opportunity to have lots of crops in a year's period, right?
Absolutely. So
So it's growing more food than what you can grow in land.
Well, we have the ability to change things over very quickly. So what takes 8 weeks to grow in the soil takes us about 4.
Okay.
The nutrients,
Wow.
the environment, everything about an aquaponics system is tailored to be exactly what fish and plants love. So the pH is right, the temperature is right, the nutrient levels are monitored on a daily basis, and you're able to grow a lot of food very densely packed in a small area. So we're able to harvest every 4 weeks. So we set up the cycle. We talk to our customers and we'll find out, what do you want on this date? And then we will back it up and start growing what you ask for and harvesting on a weekly basis. So we end up having 13 full changeovers of our growing space every single year.
That's a lot, isn't it? Yeah.
That'll end up being about 30,000 heads of lettuce in 1,800 square feet. So
And right here in Montgomery County, so it'll be very fresh.
in a very tiny building.
Well,
yeah.
because, especially like if you go to a supermarket, you know that in the spring you get certain sorts of fruit that
Yes.
are, that they've harvested and they were
Right.
bringing, and of course they've shipped them from, how many
Wherever,
days,
yeah.
wherever. And so that's great that, that doesn't matter what the season is.
Yep. We can do out-of-season crops. We can do things that other people just can't get if that's what they want. I love Thai basil. You can't buy Thai basil around here. I mean, even the bigger markets don't carry it. We'll be able to work with the people that we're supporting and grow to what they want.
Okay, that's very good. Does the I want to jump here to the discussion about GMO versus organic within this entire equity coalition. Does that conversation even enter in?
That is not, that topic has not been addressed
It's not
yet.
there, okay.
It probably will be. Remember, this is still relatively new.
Right.
And before the end of the program, I'm going to give a phone number
Good.
and an email that people, if they're interested in serving, because
And
we're
I'll-
always looking for exciting people.
I'll be asking you
visionaries.
that because you're
Okay.
going to want more volunteers, so
Oh, yeah.
we'll be sure to get that up
Oh, yeah.
there so that you can
Well, he's
know.
already got one right here.
I know, I won tonight right away. That's great. And can we talk a little bit about ways in which we're measuring how we're doing on these activities? I don't know which one of you wants to take that up first?
Well, I'll just start, and
Good.
that is that, a lot of this we're working with public health because they do so many of the measurements from,
Right.
all of us for everything that they do. So we're basically looking to them to basically do the statistical analysis and the measuring. But, they meet so regularly that, they're starting to realize, okay, I think if we do XYZ, we'll get an answer to one or two of these things. So a lot of discussions, a lot of excitement, though, with these volunteers. So I
Yes.
just couldn't be more pleased and more thankful for them.
Yeah, well, they're doing some really good work for us. Did you want to add anything else
Sure.
about the measurements?
So I'm an analyst by trade,
Oh,
and
wow, there you go.
the other person that is part of H2Grow is an engineer, so we love data.
Okay.
We plan to make sure that we are keeping track of everything we grow so that we can track the efficiency of our farms to make sure that we're producing at the optimum rate. We plan to keep weight measurements of everything that we produce and distribute. And then we want to work with Homeful and the food bank to make sure that we have a good understanding of what our produce is doing and who it's getting to and how many people it's supporting. After after we have a certain amount of data available, we think we would be able to tailor a farm to be able to fit a specific number of people. So if we want to move into a community that has 200 residents, what kind of grow space do we need to be able to put in that area to be able to support that community? And all that'll be crunching data and making sure that we have a good understanding of what we're doing and how we're distributing it.
Great. That's going to be exciting to learn about once that's really underway, and we've had a year or two of production and get all that information. We are a couple of the different committees or their goals kind of work hand in hand. I mean, to have the vibrant farms is also good for economic development and to support, our farms. So I'd like to ask for you all to comment a little bit on the relationship you have touched on between, the healthy children and healthy people, and the kind of food that we eat in the deserts where people can't get to it, or where it's not distributed in traditional ways. But say a little bit about the vibrant farms and the economic vitality.
So we will be hopefully the vibrant farm that's producing a tremendous amount for the food equity program. And the mission of it, as they state, is decrease food waste, increase the availability of healthy, locally grown food, and decrease food insecurity. And H2Grow is going to hit every single one of those. The reason we have food waste at the level we do, we're talking like thousands of tons a year getting thrown out that was vibrant food at one point. And a lot of that is due to the fact that, like you mentioned, there's a lot of food miles on everything that we eat. Most of the stuff we eat in this area comes from California and Mexico and farther south. And by the time you get it in the market, it's been picked 10 days, 2 weeks ago. And you go in and you get peppers from your local grocery store, and 3 days later that has mold on it, and you're like, I wasn't planning on making anything for 3 days, and now I got to go back to the market and get it again. So we're going to be working on decreasing food waste by making sure that the food available is as fresh as possible, giving it the longest shelf life it can possibly have.
Yeah, and I have to throw out my environmental services department under the county.
Yes.
Our landfills. We could decrease landfill waste by 15% if we recirculated the food waste and composted it, or learned how to manage it in some way. 15% of our landfill space could be saved. So
that's a lot.
It's a lot. And down at the food bank, they have acquired this huge composting machine. Have you seen it yet?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's unbelievable, and I think they've got contracts with different restaurants and everything, so they bring the food that is, they were going to throw out, and it goes through this machine. It's unbelievable. It just kind of regurgitates it and then spits it out the other side. And then they've got several community gardens there that they put that composting material in there, and then that starts. Then you can put fresh crops there, because if you keep planting the same crops in the same soil, after a while it's not nutrient
Rich anymore.
Rich in nutrients. So we have to keep doing that.
Right.
So
I've been told that we have another caller.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to turn our attention to the caller on the phone and invite them to please give us your question. You're on the air.
Hi, yes, I'm a landscaper, and part of my business model is to help empower families to grow as much of their own food and medicine as possible on their own property, both, by helping them to plant such plants, and also by educating them about the uses of all of what they're growing. I'm wondering if sort of a grassroots effort like this could make a big enough impact countering, big box stores and unhealthy sources of, not fresh produce, or how this plays into a broader sort of network of sustainability that would include urban farms, farm-to-table operations, and co-op grocery stores and such. Thank you so much for your show. The program is wonderful.
Well, thank you for your comment, and thank you for calling. Would you all like to add in on that comment?
Yeah, I love the fact that he's, working with his clients to be able to teach them how to do that. I think it's wonderful. That used to be our culture. Back during World War II, we would have victory gardens, and it was considered your patriotic duty to try to produce as much food as possible for your family so that the surpluses could go to the folks fighting overseas. I think we need to get back to that a little more, and that's a lot of the philosophy that H2Grow was started about. Get back to the basics, grow your own food, make sure that you have a sustainable community. So many areas, like we saw with the tornadoes, so many areas are really, they could be devastated just by one natural disaster. And even with all the support that came into the area from celebrities and everybody just pooling their resources and trying as hard as they can, we still couldn't meet the need after just one day of tornadoes. I think being able to have a community that can be self-sustaining on its own, and if Montgomery County could be, the first county in the U.S. that is completely food self-sustaining, I think that would be an amazing thing, and hopefully modeled by other communities in the country.
I do know that several school districts, and you talked about this a little bit, the elementary schools are actually doing gardens and showing the younger children, let's go out and make, plant some peas and green beans or something like that. The problem is in the summer then they're not there. They're gone. They're not, exactly. But at least we're starting somewhere.
Your caller mentioned educating his clients. One of the things we're looking to do with H2Grow is work with the local schools. We're based out of Huber Heights, so we want to work with Wayne High School, and they serendipitously just happened to start a Future Farmers of America program there this year.
Perfect timing.
We're working with the person that's instructing that course to build curriculum. We're going to make our farm available to their students so that they can come and log some of their volunteer hours out there. And we want to do tours. We want to show kids where the food they're eating comes from, get them used to it. I used to live in Virginia, and some of the more urban areas I've been to, some kids can't identify certain vegetables. And that's just, they're never exposed to it. They don't see it, and they definitely don't eat it. So we want to see, how much, we really want to focus on educating people on what food can do for you and how to grow it. So there's also tremendous capabilities for STEM programs that are out there. The science of growing in an aquaponics environment is all chemistry. I mean, you can teach a bachelor's level chemistry course just off of coming in and taking a look at what's going on in the water and the ecosystem that's developed there. There's engineering in there with the pipes and the water flow and how all that works together. There's technology, so if my pH sensor, if that goes too low, it can trigger an app on my phone that tells me I better get to the farm and raise the pH before things get bad. There's no end to what we can do with this if we flex our creative muscles.
Thank you very much. I have a follow-up to that, but we also have another caller. So we're going to come back to that. But thank you for calling the program, and we're anxious to hear your question.
Yeah, hi. Thank you to the Ombudsman's office for continuing to have these interesting shows, and I like to piggyback on I think the first caller to say how proud I am of everything Montgomery County has done to address the hunger issue with the pantries and the many things that they do. So applaud to Commissioner and all the people involved in this effort. I've got a couple things. The first one is that I'm concerned about low-income elderly people. I see a lot of them in my work, and they don't have much money to live on. And quite often, it seems like one of their main strategies is to just cut back on groceries. So I'm wondering, as one question, what, if anything, are there any plans specifically to expand services to low-income elderly? And secondly, I was interested in the conversation about the food waste, and wondering if they have any comments to make about how cooperative grocery stores and different establishments have been in terms of donating food instead of throwing it away. If they have anything to share on that, I'd like to hear that. Thank you.
For your call. We appreciate that. Okay, her first concern expressed was for the low-income elderly, and wondering how do they fit in this, and what ideas are there coming from these groups to try to help them?
They're right there with the same with the children, everybody else. As I said,
Equity.
It's an equity plan, yes. But I'll tell you, my heart just goes out for the elderly, because a lot of them would be able to get SNAP benefits, but they're too proud. And so what we're trying to do is get to as many as possible to apply for them, because you know what? Think about this. They may now be able to get their medicine if they're on a strict budget, and plus food. A lot of them, well, I can't get my blood pressure medicine this month because I need my groceries. Or I can't get my groceries this month because I need my high blood pressure medicine. So, just a little bit, maybe $40 a month would, bring them some fresh fruits and vegetables. So yes, seniors, and I'm not going to say the name of this, but we did get a call several months ago from a retirement community that was pretty isolated. It was for low-income people, and they were pretty isolated, and the only place they could go if they had to wait for a bus for quite some time, the bus didn't come there a lot, was across the street to a little market, and it was stale bread by the time they would get it, and it was very expensive. They couldn't get fresh fruits and vegetables. So my staff and I, we went there, and now we've reached out to the food bank, Homeful, all different sort of places to be able to bring fresh fruits and vegetables to them, as well as just decent food. So, if there are some listeners out there that know of another place like that, don't hesitate. I'll give you my phone number, because that should not be happening. So I was just happy I was able to, hopefully, make these people feel good.
And thankful that they spoke out so that somebody could respond to the situation that they were in. Did you have anything in particular about the elderly?
The elderly, no. I can talk about the food waste from the grocery stores.
Okay, I was going to move to that next. So take it away.
So I've worked with food banks in every corner of the country over the last 10 years from me moving around, and the grocery stores really help out the food banks a tremendous amount. So they often give grants to the food banks to purchase food from wholesalers, things that are beyond what would be profitable for the stores, they end up donating. So in a lot of areas that I've worked in, the grocery stores in the area really keep the food bank alive. So they go a long way to helping solve the problem.
Right. Did you want to mention anything else on that?
No, I think the food waste is just so important, because it just helps everybody. It gets the gardens the nutrients that they need, and it just takes away from the landfill.
It's actually just a very
win-win.
Smart thing to do.
Yes, absolutely.
Please.
One other thing I'd add to that is if there's community gardens out there, or just gardening in your backyard, and you find you've planted 6 tomato plants and they're coming in a little strong, donate the food. There's ways and methods that you can find. A quick search on the internet will give you a place to drop off everything. So if you're running out of neighbors and coworkers to give your tomatoes to, or your basils or your peppers, I do this every year.
Yes.
You just take it to one of the local areas that'll accept it, and it'll go to somebody who needs it.
That's a very good comment. There's a lot out there to accept.
And I'd like to add something before, because I have a feeling we're getting close to the end on this.
No, we're not at the end, but it's coming.
Okay,
So
well, I think
in.
this is very important. One of the committees is called Thriving Local Economy. Now, what we're doing with this committee is we're putting an index together, and this, you can look it up on the internet once we get it all completed. It will tell you where the food pantries are, where the markets are, where basically places maybe in your neighborhood you didn't even realize you could go to get food. So we're very excited about this. I know that Hall Hunger Initiative, Tony Hall has started that several years ago, but things move so fast. So they're really working on making this be very, very well done and make it accessible to so many people so that they don't have to sit there and go, well, I don't know where to go to get some, some good food. So this will be hopefully.
That's very.
So yeah. So again, this is one of the committees.
Yeah, that's great. That's great work to know about. We'll look forward to seeing that all categorized and out there. It'll be very useful for people. And I did ask about the kinds of vegetables, but I neglected to ask about the fish because can any fish do? Does any fish work well, or is it only certain varieties?
Unfortunately, not every fish will work as well. So you really have to tailor what fish you're going to grow to the environment you're in. So here in Ohio, we have the option of tilapia and
very popular.
Oh yeah.
And koi.
Okay.
So koi is basically a nice looking carp, and they're both very hardy fish. They grow very quickly. Tilapia you can harvest in about a month to a plate-size fillet. We decided in our initial farm to work with koi. It's a little simpler. There's not as many moving parts. You don't have to worry about finding vendors and getting licensed to handle fish that's going to be consumed by people. So to keep those kinds of things off of our plate, pardon the pun, we decided just to go with koi. As we grow and we expand, if there is a market for it, we will absolutely get into producing tilapia. The system that we're talking about in Huber Heights, the 1,800 square foot system, will produce about 500 pounds of fish a year.
Okay.
So
That's a good amount. That's a good amount, yeah.
What's koi taste like? I've never had it, I
you
don't think.
want to.
Oh, really? Oh, so it's not
It's
like
not an edible fish. No, it's
oh, okay. See,
we don't have to change it over. They live for like 40 years. So we can
There's some pretty big koi in
Whoa.
there.
yeah, we'll have to get rid of them after a little while, but people love them. They're a beautiful
They
fish,
are.
and you can
They're
put them in your
kind
koi
of
ponds.
ornamental.
Oh, okay.
People put them in koi ponds, or
We have yet another caller that we're inviting to get your question or comment onto the program. Go ahead.
Hi. I was wondering about I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Aquaponics. How is that sustained? How is that funded? When we talk about our deserts and the community and the low income, part of the issue for some of these groceries moving out of the area because it's a business and they need to make money, so they're not making it in these food desert areas. But I was just curious, how is this going to be sustained financially, and then who pays for it? Because at the end of the day, we do want to know who's going to pay for all of this food that we're talking about trying to produce and provide to our community members.
Thank you very much for your question. We appreciate your calling in. Okay, I'll let you take that away.
That's an excellent question.
Okay.
And we've spent a good amount of time figuring that one out.
Right.
So I think the first part of her question was about how aquaponics is sustained,
Right.
and what the ingest points are. So.
Yes.
Dr. Ricosi, when he was working on this back in the 70s, found out that there's a very simple, basically simple formula for what it takes to sustain a system, and that's the amount of the amount of food you feed the fish. Everything else is based off of that amount. So we will, based off the square footage of what we're going to do, we will put a certain number of fish in our tanks and feed them a certain amount of pounds of food per day. So that's what keeps the whole thing sustaining. So the only thing, aside from utilities and the day-to-day operations of an overhead of a building, is fish food and seeds, and keeping that whole process going. So how does all of this get paid for? So we were very fortunate a couple weeks ago. We presented this to the Huber Heights City Council, this project, and they voted on legislation 2 weeks ago to support us as a city-funded project. that comes with some ability to negotiate leases for a property, as well as some funding consideration from the city itself. So they've been incredibly generous, and we're talking about what building and how do we figure that all out. The rest of it, to get started initially, is going to be relying on grants and donations, fundraising that we're looking to do to be able to retrofit the building in a way that'll work for an urban indoor farm, and the purchase of the equipment that'll do the growing for us.
Okay, thank you.
Well, once that's done,
Okay.
sorry.
Keep going.
So once that's accomplished and we start growing, we're going to be able to basically sell the produce at below market cost to places like Homeful and the food bank that are going to, if they weren't buying it from us at less than wholesale cost, they'd be buying it from some other wholesaler to be able to provide it. And it would be, again, that food that's coming from California or Mexico or down south. So they will have, their dollar will go much farther being able to purchase it from a local vendor than they would having to worry about shelf life and things like that. And they also have predictability in working with us that they don't have from other markets. So we mentioned the grocery stores that were donating food to the food banks. So in my experience, while working with food banks in Virginia, certain weeks you'd have, 40 apples donated from one grocery store, and the next week it'd be 10 cucumbers, and you had no predictability whatsoever as to what was coming in or what you would be able to provide to people that you're servicing. So what we're going to be able to do by providing it directly to places like the food bank and Homeful is give them that predictability. They can order X number of heads of lettuce, X amount of kale or basil or tomatoes, and we will adjust what we're growing to be able to meet those needs. It increases their ability to project into the future as to what they're going to be able to provide, and it gives us a good understanding of what our consumers are looking for.
Okay, very good.
How many employees are you going to have for this, do you think, approximately?
For the initial system that we're setting up, just me. Okay. It'll take about, the nice thing about the aquaponics system, even one that's this scale, is there's very few moving parts at all. You have to seed and you have to harvest. So we will end up harvesting about 580 plants a week. So that is, when we were doing it, we got certified late last year on farm management. So when we were doing this in our certification program, that amount of plants took about 8 hours to harvest, and that amount of seeds took about an hour and a half to seed. So
That's
not
amazing.
a tremendous amount of work
There's
per
a lot
week.
of efficiency in this.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Wow.
really just have to come in and make sure everything's working properly and the power's on, and there's backups for that, and
Wow.
you're really only busy about 1 day a week.
That's right. We have identified the food deserts in our community, which we've talked about and we put up there on the screen. I'm interested now in how to, because all of those food deserts are large areas, but I'm interested in how to connect the people that need the food with the people that are going to be helping to produce more food and make Montgomery County more food independent.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things we're going to have to start thinking outside the box, because some of the grocery stores are closing, the buses don't necessarily go where you need them to go, so we're going to have to start thinking, how can we get people to the store or get the food to them? It just depends how that goes. So we are sort of looking at different, maybe taking Uber there. But if you have the SNAP, that EBT card does not pay for that. So we have had discussions with Senator Brown's office and Senator Portman's office saying, is there any way that we can, stick that in the SNAP programs? They are more than willing to discuss this with us again. So we're going to keep that dialogue open.
Good.
Because that's a shame right there. Just think if you're on a tight budget and you need, groceries, but there's no way you can get to the store. Wouldn't that be great to be able to call Uber or something else? Now, some areas are participating, I think it's in Cincinnati with CareSource, with something like Lyft or something like that, and trying to work that out with CareSource in Cincinnati area. So we're sort of watching that and seeing if we can't duplicate that here.
So there's some kind of room for out of the box, but also room for entrepreneurial activities there, I would think, to help get them. I was also intrigued by your comment about being able to grow food in a specific area that the people living there have requested. Like if there's a certain appetite in a certain neighborhood, but that really involves, it seems like, a lot of polling. Or how are you approaching that?
So the way we're thinking about this is we want to move. We don't want to come in and tell a group of people what they're going to eat. That doesn't make any sense, and they just won't buy it, and then you won't be in business any longer. So polling would be one of the ways to do it. Going to the communities and saying if fresh vegetables were available in your neighborhood where you can just walk down the street and pick them up, what would you be looking for? And then tailoring what we put into that farm to be specific for that community. The goal of H2Grow, kind of the strategic plan that we have, is after we have established our first farm in Huber Heights, to look for other areas that are in food insecure and poor food access areas, and look around for a spot that would allow us to serve the greatest amount of people right out of the gate. So find a place on a bus route, someplace that interchanges. I mean, your idea to put markets at the metro interchange is brilliant to me, and I'm stealing the idea when we look for our next place for H2Grow.
It's okay.
We're going to be looking for places like that and finding out what those people in that area want. It's the nice part about it. Once we find out how to best work the model, we just keep refining it until we get it as perfect as we can. And we'll be able to move into those areas that are food insecure and have poor food access. We're not a grocery store. We're not looking to make profits off of this. We're looking to very simply supply a high quality food to people that need it. So if we need to be wherever in West Dayton we can find that we can work with the city perhaps to get a lease on a building, kind of like we're doing in Huber Heights, that model is working very well for us because it keeps our costs low. And we're able to.
And that's the important thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. We don't want to be charging the same amount as a food wholesaler. That wouldn't make any sense. We want to be able to keep it at a rate where the people that are distributing the food for us through the Food Equity Coalition are able to make that dollar stretch farther and be able to put it towards more services.
Wonderful.
I want to throw out a couple of statistics here.
Please.
Because I think that we've been talking in generalities, so I want to just tell you, and these are, from the past several years, we basically have over 90,000 people in our community here that are food insecure. Now, SNAP programs, of that, there's over 70,000, and that count was from 2017. So that's right here. Those are called active participants, over 70,000. So that's broken down into basically about 21% of our children here in Montgomery County are food insecure. Think about that.
That's sad.
1 in 5.
Yep.
6 in a typical classroom.
Yep. Yep. So I want our viewers here to understand that this is a
deep problem.
Deep problem. Because, I think our children, how can they go to school and they have to know how to read by the 3rd grade. If they've got a growling stomach through the first couple years, they're not going to be able to read, then they just start to slowly fade away as far as not being interested in school, and because they don't understand what they're doing. Right, so it's just sad. It's
very, very important. So now probably would be a good time to tell people how they can get involved, how they can be involved and help.
Yes. Okay, so what you can do is feel free to call my office, and that's now you have to call 937.
Yes, we have an area code.
Yes, 937-225-6470. Okay. 225-6470 if you want to get plugged into one of our committees, or just go to mcfoodpolicy.org, mcfoodpolicy.org, and take a look online about what that is. Here is a sort of a pamphlet. If you'd like, you can call the office and we'll mail it to you. Food Equity Plan 2019. It sort of explains a little bit about what we've been talking about a little bit here.
Good
Definitions
resource.
and everything, yeah. So I'd ask anyone if they've got the energy and the passion for this to definitely get on one of our committees.
And it sounds like they are all very welcoming, and it sounds like the
Yes.
volunteers that are already there would
Yes.
be welcoming and inviting
Yes,
people to come
definitely.
and join them.
Yes.
This plan, which Commissioner held up, is also available at the Dayton and Public Health website.
Yes,
So that you can
yes.
go through
Absolutely.
at your own time and leisure and take a look at that. To join one of those committees in there. They're all listed in here, and there's brief descriptions of their activities.
And one thing I have to, if we have just a minute or two,
Yes.
and you have to understand that when a grocery store wants to build here or come here, they look at the index, they look at information, they look at data to find out how many people live in that particular area. This is why what's coming up now here in March and April, it's our census count. And it is so important. I know you're going to have someone on here, but I just want to tell the viewers it is so important. Don't be shy that this information is not going to go to any nefarious area here. They just want to know how many people are here in Montgomery County. And I'm talking an adult, a child that's 2 hours old, anyone. They're not going to ask if you're a citizen. They don't care about that. They just want to know where you live. And this is so important because we lost about 10,000 people in the 2010 census here in Montgomery County. We don't want to do that again because we lost 2 representatives from Washington. We don't want to do that again. Yeah. So it's so important. I know you're going to have someone else come on, but it's so important for our viewers here to make sure that you are counted.
Thank you for mentioning that. I really appreciate your participation in the show tonight. It's been a lot of information that we've tossed out, but thank you very much for coming. And I want to thank our viewers for watching and calling into the program. Thank you. Good night.